Let's go, girls.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin has the day off, and welcome to one of our special episodes. We are going all the way to Nigeria today to visit with just one of the most amazing women I've met in a long time. Her name is Alex Okoroji, and she's a Nigerian actress. She's also a writer, a TV personality, a talk radio host, speaker, author, and self-help motivator, and she has over 10 years of professional experiences as so many things: a reinvention coach, creative entrepreneur, this personality. She is just so great, and she has so much going for her, and I'm really excited to bring her on the show today because we are talking about accepting challenges and embracing reinvention and applying creativity. And for those of you that have heard my shows before, we've been on the air, I know, 3-4 years now, you know that I am a master at reinvention. You know, as a text person, I am Sandra 2.0, 3.0. Now in my 40s, I'm Sandra 4.0. And, you know, life is exciting when we take our great ideas and we apply it to ourselves and we just rock and roll with it. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Alex on because she has got so much to share in this. This is her specialty. This is her passion. I'm so excited to have you on the air with me today. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Oh, my goodness. You know, I am so excited to be joining you right now, all the way from Nigeria in Africa. And I'm starting to think maybe I'm Alex 3.0 or something. I don't know exactly what but it's such an honor to be here and to share this space with you and your listeners. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And, you know, I want to talk about this like 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 thing because, you know, I'm a software person by nature. I run a technology company. I have a tech background. And I would sit here working on these iterations of software programs and big ones, big releases, you know, like when a big release of WordPress or a big release of Microsoft Word comes out, you know, we have all these little like, you know, 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, 3.7. And I'm like, this is just like calendar years, like a software program ages like a person. And we get better and we kind of wrinkle out the bumps and creases we don't like. We apply a few more creases maybe to our face. But it really, human behavior, you know, does really follow software progression if you have a personal mission of continual improvement, which is something that I hold near and dear.
Absolutely. You know, I agree with you. Every day is almost like we're evolving, right? So every day is a new day. We're learning something new. We're trying to be better than we were yesterday. And like you said, just like software, you know, we're growing and they're growing like us. And besides, I think software, they're created by human beings. So I think we sort of apply a human a human face or a human attitude to just how we create the things that we create. And we all know how important it is for us to grow, no matter who we are, where we live, what we're doing. To get to where we're going, we're definitely going to have to just find different ways to reinvent ourselves. So I totally agree with you.
Well, and that's what makes life worth living. You know, when I see some of my friends, Alex, I came from a real small town, a little country town, and, you know, and I'm not going to judge anyone because I don't want them judging me. But when I see some of my friends who wanted to be a nurse when they were 5 years old and they were a nurse for Halloween and then they went to nursing school and then they were a nurse and they're fully content. I just had to like raise a flag going, but that didn't work for me. You know, I was a college professor in my 20s. Then I worked for Disney. Then I worked for CBS. Then I decided to go into real estate. And then I got bored there. And then I moved on to, you know, television. And then I'm working in radio. And then I'm, you know, now I'm working heavily in book publishing. I love every minute of it. But when people ask me what I do, it's really funny. I had the hardest time because I couldn't answer them. And if I gave people a string of things, then it sounded like I was like a jack of all trades, master of none.
And a master of none.
Yep. So I came up with this great line. Actually, Linda Franklin, my co-host, you know, who isn't here today, came up with it. She goes, Sandra, you just say you're growing your multimedia business. Because that kind of encompasses everything I do. So if people say, well, what does that, you know, mean? Then I can get into it. But at least I have something, like when somebody says I'm a nurse and then they come to me and I'm like, well, you know. I mean, when we wear many hats, you have to have had that same feeling at least at one point in your life.
Sandra, another one point in my life, I have that feeling almost every day of my life. Like, it is the hardest question to answer. I'm sorry, Alex. I mean, you meet people who, you will always meet someone who's sort of meeting you for the first time, who doesn't know who you are. For example, some of your listeners right now, you know, I'm all the way in Africa, and you're going to meet people who don't know you and going to go like, sorry, what do you do? And it's hard to answer. Like, how do I start to, you know, even you were really not, you're introducing me and you got like, oh, you know, she does everything. Because it pretty much is like, how do you describe yourself? But just like you, I kind of found one word to sort of put everything, you know, and make it easier for people. And so I started saying I'm an expressionist, right? And so people call me the queen of expression. And I found something that was sort of like a common denominator in everything that I do, which is the fact that I use all these different tools and all these different mediums, you know, of the media to express myself. So whether I'm expressing myself as an actress in front of the camera, or I'm on air on radio, or I'm writing, right? You know, what I'm using, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm expressing myself. So I kind of found that word and say, oh, you know, I'm an expression. And they go like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, you know, because it's easier. Or some people just hold on to one part of what you do. And of course, like here in Nigeria, a lot of people were introducing me as an actress. But then it kind of feels like it's not complete. Like, you know, I don't feel complete because I'm not just an actress. I'm all of these other things. There are other parts of me that kind of fully make Alex, you know, who she is. So, you know, I'm a writer and I do that. Like, I'm reading, like, my blog has like over how many articles I've been doing. Like, I'm pretty much a natural writer. I'm an author. I've got a book. I'm speaking. So it's like you're trying to describe someone and it doesn't feel complete. So I kind of found a word just like you that makes me feel a little, makes it easier on me.
Well, and your stuff is not chump change. Like, we're not talking about, like, you know, you did, like, you know, the local, you know, production of Anne Frank over the bowling alley, or you're, you know, just writing on your blog. You know, you've got big credits. You know, the Huffington Post, you know, the first African woman in Africa to be featured alongside other powerhouse women, Naked Bliss Academy. I mean, there's some big chunks here that are so much more than what you know, like when you just say I'm a writer. Well, you know what? You're really an accomplished writer and you're a professional writer, but that's just one of the hats you wear. And kind of as we get older, don't you find, like, when somebody says, oh, you're a radio host, I'm like, well, yeah, that's like saying I'm a human body and I have blonde hair. Well, you know, I have blue eyes, I got, you know, boobs, I got feet, you know, I've got all these other things to me. And I think when we don't fit neatly into a little box, and I'm not going to speak for you, I'm going to speak just for me, because I think a lot of our listeners will identify with this, and you can either confirm or deny. But when you don't fit neatly into a box, there's like this duality in you, which is like, wow, you look at your accomplishments and your awards and go, woo, I can do all these things. And then you're like, yeah, but I don't really fit anywhere. So then it's like, eh. And, you know, there's this feeling, it's like a balance in me that I kind of I've got to get somehow to embrace all of me and all the things I do, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, you know, you know, it's weird I'm going to say this, but I totally 100% agree with you. And I deal with this every day, even with my, you know, like you said, I mean, someone would just say, oh, you're a radio host, but you're not just a radio host. You're the host of Powered Up, you know, Talk Radio and so many other accomplished shows, having, you know, interviewed so many amazing, influential people. So it's not just one of those shows, right? It's the same thing, even as an actress, it's not, when I look back at my reel and I think of the people I've worked with here and, being in the media is not news. It's not like, you can Google and find all sorts of random things about, because you can be out there and somebody's just talking about you. But at the same time, it kind of still makes you feel sort of like an outcast in a sense, because unlike your colleagues who are probably just actors, you're more than just an actor. And so you don't really have the time to sort of live up just that life, because you're doing so many things, you're wearing so many hats, and you have to be at so many different points in your life. So sometimes, I might be on set filming and the actress has wrapped for the day, but the radio host has to go to work, right? Or
the single mom has to go to work.
Or the single mom, exactly. Like, that's something, exactly. And as a mom, I have to get back to work. So I don't have a day off. Like, I'm busy, and then I remember I have to write my article for this week on Huffington, it's Monday, and then I have to put on my blog, so you're constantly busy. But at the same time, and you did say that, you don't fit into a box, and that can make you feel fun, and that can make you feel funny in so many ways. Even the fact that you're so accomplished and the fact that you feel like you've achieved so much can also be something that scares people, right? Because, it can make people feel uncomfortable around you, because all of a sudden you're worried there's this pedestal that you've been put on that makes you feel like you're not human, and then the expectations are unreal because you're talented. And I used to deal with this a lot before. I used to say to myself, when you say you do all this many things, and you said that at the beginning, it makes you feel like you're a jack of all trade and master. No, but I tell myself, I'm a jack of all trade and mistress of many, or some. Some, because I'm that good, and it's something that we all need to, maybe the listeners, start to accept that. No, it's not true that you cannot be good to be, it's not true that, there's this saying, there are people who believe that, if you're invested in so many different things or you're doing so many things, it's because you're not really good at any. That's not true. You can slay whatever it is you're doing. Really, pretty much, as long as it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that feels natural to you, and it's something that you enjoy, at least for the time that you're doing it, So, yeah.
It is. It's very hard. I need to take us to commercial break, but, I want to honor women today and all the hats we wear, because I think that's one of the things that, really gets to the bottom of it. There's very few women on this that walk this earth that wear only one hat and that, take their hat off and put their feet up and watch TV the rest of the night, by themselves. There's really not that much. So I'm visiting here with Alex Okoroji, and you can find her at Alex Okoroji. That's OKOROJI.me. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about women's issues and how we can wear many hats and do it with style.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
Congratulations on being the proud owner of an adorable, soft, cuddly, sweet-smelling, smiling, cooing, hungry, tired, gassy, screaming little bundle of joy. So now what? Where's the owner's manual for this thing? Where are my instructions? Right here. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com. Infant care specialist Blythe Lipman has worked with babies for over 20 years and works extensively with new parents, providing workshops, in-home visits, tips, and daily phone calls to ease those frazzled nerves. With Baby and Toddler Instructions, you can get the advice you need on how to survive and enjoy your baby's first year. For more information on Blythe and how she can help you, go to babyinstructions.com. From 32 ways to stop a baby from crying to 14 ways to get a baby to eat and so much more. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com.
It's words you never heard.
Here's some fun facts about noses and ears I'll bet you didn't know. Did you know your ears secrete more earwax when you're afraid than when you aren't? And generally, people with asthma have better hearing than those who don't. Now, here's a word for you. When someone gets their ears pierced, they're actually piercing their pinna. The pinna is the fleshy part of the earlobe. Did you know it's possible to sneeze so hard you can break a rib? That happened to my husband's secretary once. And according to research, you'll blow your nose 250 times this year. Scientists have also determined that the smell in your right nostril is more pleasant, while the smell in your left nostril is more accurate. By the way, twice as many men as women can wiggle their ears.
It's Merging Neighborhood.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and this is Powered Up Talk Radio. Linda Franklin has the day off. We are visiting today with Alex Okoroji and we're talking about accepting challenges and embracing reinvention and using our creativity to do it. Now, challenges, Alex, I always feel it's good to put the challenges out on the table so we can, pick them apart like crows and pull their bones apart and see what we can do with them. Some of the challenges as we when we're successful women, when we're mothers, when we've got everything going on, we talked about how when the day ends, it's just another job begins. And it's really fulfilling and wonderful. And, we pack a lot into our days. I'm sure you cram a lot in. I know I do. But accepting the challenges also means that we kind of have to be in the right frame of mind to do this. We don't want to accept the challenge necessarily because of fear. We don't want to accept it because we don't have any other option right now. We really want to step forward and embrace the challenge. And there was a time in my life recently for a year and a half that I was like, Alex, I've written the book, I've been on the radio, I've been on TV, I ran my charities, I built this, I did that. I kind of went through my bucket list and I'm like, what's next?
What's left?
Yeah, and I thought, not that I achieved everything in my lifetime, but there was this feeling of I just have done everything for the last 40 years for everyone around me. And when it came to thinking about what can I do for me, I didn't have an answer.
Mm-hmm. It's, and you say that because that is something that, like you said, successful women or maybe even aspiring women who, are aspiring to be successful successful women deal with. And, I've been there as well. You wake up and you say, sometimes you even forget the things you've achieved and then you realize you've done this, you've worked with this person, you've been there, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you've achieved everything that you want, but it feels like, that initial list that you put together, you sort of tick the boxes, but then you now have to sort of find a way to, like you said, sometimes you can have 2.11, right? Or 2.12, right? So you might still be on 2.1 or 2.12, right? And create a B, how you can create it and say, okay, so I'm doing this right now, but how can I take this one thing that I'm doing right now or these 10 different things that I'm doing right now and take them to the next level and probably go into an area or a niche or somewhere that I haven't been. Right? So for me, for example, let me use myself as an example. I remember that when I first, and speaking about challenges, I did have one very challenging point in my life. I was an actress, booking jobs and being on every television. I was probably on several television shows at the same time, soap operas at the same time, doing movies here and all of that. And then, I met someone that got married to another actor from another African country. And, fast track to that, we got married, and then fast track and I had a child, right? And so all of a sudden, I was a new mom. My body had changed. I was no longer that kind of the sex symbol, the actress that everyone, I'd put on a bit of weight. And then somewhere along that line, my relationship was breaking down. So my marriage wasn't working. I moved back home to Nigeria. And then I'd moved back home with a 6-month-old baby. And who's going to book, an actress who was a little overweight with a 6-month-old baby? And honestly speaking, at that time, I didn't really I wasn't even in the right mindset to I was just frustrated with so many things.
Sure.
And while trying to think of how I was going to raise my child by myself as a single mom and still maintain my art, and then worrying about the media because, of course, everyone was talking. Oh, like all those actresses that never came. But here's the thing. I said to myself, what are these other skills that I have? What are these other things? I didn't even know how I was going to introduce myself. Should I introduce myself using my maiden name or my married name or what? And somehow one of the things that I did eventually was be naked with myself, be honest, be truthful with myself. I had to have that real talk with myself. And I said, what is the one thing you want to do? What is the one reason why you've been doing everything, that you've done the things that you've done so far? And that reason was because I wanted to impact people. But here's the thing. I did not want to only impact people in my country. I didn't want to impact people in Africa. I wanted to impact people around the world. Was I doing that? Not really. And if I hadn't really asked myself, I may have thought I was doing everything that I wanted to do, which was the fact that I was in the news every week and I was booking jobs and I, was a celebrity. But who knew me? It's just people in my country. So what am I saying? Back to 2.1 or 2.11 is that I now had to look back at some of the things I had. Yes, I've been writing. I've written, screenplays for films that won awards and stuff like that. But how can I take that writing, that same writing that I've been doing, and put it out there in a that it can reach more people outside my own comfort zone or outside my own community? And that's where, challenging yourself, comes in, right? So I decided, okay, how was I going to meet more people, amazing people like you, and collaborate with more people and learn from them and do stuff with them so that I'm going and trying to impact people, not just from my own community, but outside my community. So I don't know if you get to experience, maybe you think of ways that you as well try to do maybe the same thing that you've been doing, but doing it in a different way than you've always done it.
Well, what I think it is, and it was identified to me by somebody, I went through something similar with my divorce and raising my kids, real young by myself and things like that, and gaining weight. And, that's what led actually to my radio career because, I thought, well, I could do radio. I don't want to be in front of the camera because as my ex-husband pointed out to all of our friends, she really let herself go. But what I realized, somebody wrote into me and he said, it was some guy, I don't even know who he was, Alex, and he said, he goes, I used to watch you at CBS as a pretty girl, and he goes, you were a really pretty girl, and he goes, and I was just starting to cringe. I was waiting for here, like, wow, you really packed on the pounds, or wow, you really, I was like all ready for that. And then he's like, but I saw you recently and you've grown into a gorgeous woman. And the thing is, I'm going to say the same thing to you, Alex, because I saw your pictures when you're younger. And yeah, you were a very pretty girl. You were a hot, pretty girl, but you've grown into a gorgeous woman. And part of that transition from pretty girl to gorgeous woman meant bringing all these other things on, your radio, your speaking, your books, your charity, like all these things that make us full-bodied. And it's so funny because, like, okay, then we're full-bodied women. So you like, why would I expect, and I kind of had this argument with myself, why would I expect myself to look like I'm 20 years old again? At 20 years old, I was a body and I was a face, and I get that. And I was good at that, but I didn't have all the richness I have now. So, it was really like this kind of come to Jesus that I had to have with myself going, I'm not 20 years old, but at, 40 something doesn't mean that I've gone backwards in time. And that's where that whole software thing came from. And when we create software, we add new parts of ourselves. And, I honor how you felt when you had your baby and you had to go back home and almost that's where another iteration of Alex came, that reinvention, that starting over. And I have a book that I'm working on, so I hope nobody rips off my title, but go ahead, whatever. But I call it Balancing the Style because, we're back, we're reinventing ourselves, but we're not starting from scratch. And that's the one thing when you do reinvent yourself, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I've got a friend who's 90 who's reinventing herself. She's decided she wants to paint. And I'm like, rock out, like keep reinventing yourself. But we're not starting from scratch when we reinvent ourselves. You carried forward a lot from your, like, you couldn't go out and do speaking today if you hadn't had experience in front of the camera. Those skill sets carried forward. There's so many skill sets that carried forward for you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And, I agree with you. Like you said, when you're reinventing yourself, you're not really starting from scratch. You're actually moving forward. You're just taking, you're going from where you are right now and sort of walking that up a little. Like you said, you're bouncing up that and taking yourself to to the next phase or to the next level. And that, that did for me. So it wasn't like, truth is, I started a lot of things. I started doing my radio show, and I started my blog, and I started writing my book. And, the first set of people who were interested in all those things were people who were my fans as an actress. So it wasn't like, or my friends or family or people that I already knew. So it wasn't really like, you're starting all over again. It was really just you going into wearing a new feather, or going to a new, like a butterfly, like sort of like metamorphize. And you said something that someone has said to me as well. And not just someone, like a couple of people have said it. And they were like, you know what? I like this new you. I like that you put on a little bit of the pounds. You're not as skinny as, like a woman, right? So, I agree with you when you say that. And I say that to myself. I don't even feel like I want to be the way that I was years back. Like I don't actually. I feel like right now I'm owning that. I like where I am. I'm feeling comfortable with that. And I think that's what, when we say that we have to embrace challenges, is we have to see the good in it, right? We have to see that we have to be, we have to believe that something positive is always going to come from something. I was just writing something, and I thought about it. There was a time when I thought, aging was what brought wisdom, but I realized that it's experience that actually brings wisdom and not aging. And so all of those experiences that we have, whether it's in our career or our personal life, and even if it's challenges, we must always see those challenges as another experience, that, can give us lessons that would be beneficial for us.
I think you're right on. I mean, it's so important that as we get older, that we have to monitor our thoughts. We have to think about, because our bodies do change and our lives do change. Not everybody has, the same relationship in their 40s that they had in their 20s, and not everybody has the same number of kids or dogs or books or whatever it is. Some people peak at 20 and then they go through a trough, and maybe they have to come up from, they have to come off of a high and battle themselves back, or they have to battle themselves up the mountain for what they want to achieve or accomplish or have in their life. Now we're visiting today with Alex Okoroji. Her website is Alex, Alex. Okoroji is spelled Okoroji.me. It's a great site. You're going to want to check it out. You can learn a lot. You can see what she has to say. She's got a lot of really good things for women's empowerment. So if you're feeling down, go to her website. You're going to see her beautiful smile. You can't not smile in response to it. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about navigating change, because change is one thing that we're certain of that's going to happen in our life. And some changes happen because we choose them. Other changes happen to us, and there's not much we can do about it. But we're going to talk about this when we come back from break. Alex Okoroji, this is Sandra Beck from Powered Up Talk Radio. We'll be back after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
It's words you never heard.
I had a weird weekend relaxing and reading through Mental Floss when I came across these rip-roaring R-words. I recognized a few of them, such as the old 18th century Scottish word ramfeaseld, which means fatigued or exhausted. A couple more great R words are rucketly-tucketly, meaning crumpled or gathered up and ruched. Ruche is commonly used today to describe a flattering blouse or top. Rabbity is a 16th century word for an innocent fool, while raffle-coppin is a rash, impetuous person, or maybe just somebody that gets carried away with our words.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
The League of Women Voters reminds you that on Election Day, we are all equal. Please join your friends and neighbors by registering to vote and going to the polls November 8th. Visit www.vote411.org to find out who will be on your ballot and how the voting process works in your community. This election is about our future, and we all need to weigh in.
Hey! Oh, sorry. I had something caught in my throat. I'm like, hey, ladies, this is Sandra from Powered Up Talk Radio. I think I'm losing my voice, Alex, and this is not good because I got 5 hours of recording to do today. But we're going to talk today about change. And, you know, there are changes that happen in our life that we can kind of predict. Like I can see as I get older, there's kind of little change walking around my face and stamping, especially around my eyes. But then there's also changes that happen because we didn't do anything. You know, spouses leave, spouses die, friends betray you. I mean, they're usually, you know, changes that we're most impacted by are usually not good ones. And Alex, you went through a divorce with very young children. I went through a divorce with very young children, and it wasn't necessarily my choice. You know, I would have continued to work hard at my marriage, and it came to a point where there was like, okay, there is no choice. Like it wasn't even a choice for me either way. And I felt like this choice was made for me, and maybe God was pushing me forward. I don't know. I think so. I like to think so, because you hate to think you go through any trauma in a relationship for nothing. But there were times that I would look around and I would see these happy, intact families, and I'd be there with my double stroller and, you know, with the cooler on my back. And my favorite thing, Alex, was go to movie night in the park with all the other families. And then I'd be putting my blanket down and some husband and wife were fighting and the kids were fighting, and I was there with my happy little like single unit. I know how bad it sounds, but I would like revel in fighting because I felt so bad sometimes that I was the only one. And I know with 50% divorce rate that I'm not the only one, but I felt like it at the time.
You know what, Sandra, I understand what you're saying, because when we go through these things, you know, we think, like you said, that we're the only ones, and especially with social media, with everybody putting up, you know, putting up their best, you know, their perfect life, and everyone's happy and everyone's booed up and everyone is in their, you know, happy place and with the most perfect partner or the most perfect life. It's hard, you know, that sort of puts the strain on even, you know, the most confident person. But yes, I have been through that. You know, when I went through my own, you know, at first it started as separation and then it became, you know, divorce. You know, the truth is, like you said, you know, these things just happen. Like, I don't think it wasn't like deliberate at first. It wasn't like something that I thought was even going to be, you know, I thought at some point we'll probably make up in a way, you know, you just have those, but it got to the point that I told myself, you know what, this is fine now. And really because, like you said, I didn't have a choice. You know, it was either I was going to be in a situation and maybe one day not be alive or get hurt, or just, you know, moving with my life and figure out how to sort of start all over. And having been in a relationship where, you know, I was abused emotionally and verbally and even physically, I mean, you know, it happened twice. The first time I was kicked in my stomach, I just had my baby. He was 2 months and I had a cesarean. So I had a C-section. I wasn't even healed yet. You know, my baby was just 8 weeks and I was kicked, you know, in my stomach. And then the second time it was almost like, you know what, I don't feel like I need to see this, you know, 20 other times before I sort of make a decision, you know, and that's the problem, because we feel like, you know, it's okay, you know, couples know, you know, if somebody cares about you and they're comfortable with hurting you, I mean, who hits a new, like, who does that to, like, you know, a new mother? Like, really, my baby's just 8 weeks. So those are the things. But every day having to deal with someone who not only was ripping you off your self-esteem and your confidence. I mean, and I would say to myself, how could, out of everyone, you know, out of all the men in the world who, you know, all the people I knew that would come at me and say, hey, you know, how could I end up with this one? Like, how did I make that sort of mistake? You know, I was blaming myself for everything. Like, you know, I felt like I was dumb.
Oh, me too. Me too. I took the mantle of responsibility for the whole marriage on my own shoulders and took it as my own personal failure. Talk about, boundary issues and not knowing. But, that's part of it. That's part of what gets, people into these relationships is they do take on things that aren't theirs. They take on the responsibility of what's not theirs and they hold on to it. And, it's funny when I had a really hard time, Alex, knowing like what was my fault and what wasn't my fault because it was easier just to take it all on.
I agree with you. And it was so weird. I couldn't talk to anyone. And again, in the African culture, we don't really have that culture having to sit in front of a shrink or a psychologist and talk about your problems. So you're basically dealing with your issues by yourself. And then, for me, it was even a lot harder because I was afraid to talk to anybody. And I could talk to someone and it could be front page news the next week,
Right.
in front of the papers. And people were talking already, there's this now that, there's this belief that actresses and, entertainers don't keep their relationships and their marriages. And again, in the African culture, the woman kind of takes the blame for if your marriage doesn't work. They don't care that, the man might have been a jerk or something. It's really your fault because maybe you're too ambitious. Maybe if you were constantly in the kitchen 24/7, he won't leave. There's always, there's just all of this.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's over here too. I mean, I heard that through scuttlebutt. It's like, well, she was probably never home. She was working all the time. Of course he would meet someone else. Of course he would do this. Of course he felt intimidated because she's so much successful than him. And I was like sitting here going, really? It's like I already take all this on. Now I got to take this on too. That was the camel's straw or broke the back or whatever for me was then when people started pointing fingers. And it's like, yeah, but I was the one who made our life possible. I was the one who paid our bills. I was the one who was stable and home all the time. And, pulled my company into my house so I could be home all the time. And it's like, why didn't people point fingers at the other party going, well, you never accomplished anything. You were just running around chasing skirt and tail. And, but we didn't hear any of that. It was all somehow my fault. And that was really hard for me. I don't, you had the same thing. And it was just, might be different culture, different scenario, but same problem.
Yes, we're, like I said, women, it's so funny how, like you said, we may be in different parts of the world and doing different things, but we're really similar at the core of it. And it's weird that maybe it's because of how, I don't know what it is, but somehow we take on all of these responsibilities. And that was what I was dealing with. It was like, if you're a man, you get a whole pass. Like you get a pass, you can pretty much do anything you want and have concubines and children and girlfriends and mistresses and everything.
And that's what they do.
Because you're a man, exactly. It's okay for you, but for a woman, if it doesn't work, what did you do? Like, it's your fault. Like, what did you do? It has to be your fault for something that's it. And so because of that, what happened was I remember one time, not one time, a couple of times, I would go out, to an event and I would be on the red carpet. And then, the journalists or, the press, they would ask, oh, hi, Mrs. Alex, how was your wedding? How's your husband? How's marriage? How's this? And I would lie. I was lying and I'll go, oh, we're fine. We're great. We're good. And I did that 6-7 times.
Oh my God, I did that for years, Alex. Years. I would go out into the public and be this success and come home to this nightmare, and I'd lie through my teeth.
And I was doing that. And not only was I doing that just because of myself as well, I was also doing that to protect my family. I have my father is in the same industry and famous. And then you're worried about just how your issues, they are worried about how your issues are rubbing off on them in public, right? So everyone is lying. And I'm going to, at a point, I stopped going out. It was more like, I don't want to go out because I don't want anybody to ask me any question.
Exactly.
And I don't want to
I don't want to have to lie, and I don't want to answer any. And I got to be the queen of deferral. In fact, one of the guys I dated after I got divorced, and I've known him 20 years, and we're still great friends. He gave me the name the Queen of Deferral. And he's like, Stan, I've never seen anybody do this as well as you. We'd be at a dinner party and somebody would say, well, how old are your kids? And, and then like, is so-and-so the dad? Or, it would come up, not, they wouldn't ask that bluntly, but, and I could just really deftly put the conversation back on them. If they asked me how old my kids were, I would ask them if they had any kids. If they asked me about something, I would just ask them a question back. And, most people people don't pick up on that. They just answer the question. They have no idea that you didn't answer. And he would sit there at a dinner party going, he's like, that's 15, that's 16. He goes, you have successfully deferred, 16 questions, personal questions. But I kind of became bulletproof and an enigma. And it really affected, though, my personal relationships, because I found that when I put that persona on in public, that it was very hard for me to let my guard down in person. And I just got to the point where when somebody asked me how I was doing, I couldn't even answer it. I just had something, well, like, oh, good, how are you doing? And it was just immediate, and the queen of deferral came out, but she came out in my personal life too, and with my family and friends, and that was hard. That was hard to relearn.
That is, but that's also where I had to, at some point, try to find some sort of a balance or some way to deal with it. Because I would say to myself, I can't do this forever. Like, I'm not going to go out because I'm worried about people asking me questions and me having to lie or not wanting to answer or not wanting to be rude or not wanting to make the other person look bad. But, or just allow people to define me or define the situation. I was worried about those things. And which is why I decided, first of all, it took me having to journal. So I said, okay, I'm going to start writing down how I feel, because I can't really talk to anybody. I don't even trust anybody. I don't trust sharing this with anybody. So I put it down. But then after a while, I was like, what, take a bold step, do something. And I put it out there. So I put it out there on Facebook, and, the reaction was really surprising. I was waiting for people to go like, how can you be talking about, how can you share this? How can you talk about this? But rather, people were more surprised, and some people could relate with what I was going through. Some said, oh, I know someone who's been through this. Oh, my sister went through that, or my cousin, or I know someone in my job, and so I became more accessible and real to them. I was no longer this actress who was on some sort of a pedestal. I became a real human being, and, putting my flaws out there. So, what, this has happened. These are my challenges. These are the things that I went through. These are the things that, I'm not ashamed anymore, to put it out. And which is where, the whole naked, philosophy came from, just being honest and stripping yourself and revealing yourself, revealing everything, whether it is revealing your sparkle, the things that are great about you, like your talents and your skills. And those, I had certain skills that were dormant. How many people knew that, I could, you were just an actress, but how many people knew that you could, talk and speak and coach and, do other things? How many people knew that those screenplays could one day become, an award-winning, could become a book and become other things because you had all those, all those skills, or you had all those, all that talent and gifts. And so the truth is, we go through those changes, but somehow they set us up for something even bigger. Like, if I hadn't gone through that, what are the chances I would be here talking to you right now, Sandra?
Well, right. I wouldn't be talking to you if I hadn't gone through it. And, I got to take us to commercial break, but I want to raise a point that somebody raised on a blog post many years ago. She said, everybody is a celebrity in their own small way. So if you're in a small town and you're the one that's getting the ugly divorce, or you're the one whose husband's cheated on you, it doesn't matter if you're a big celebrity or living in a small town. The feelings are the same. Now, when we come back from the break, Alex and I are going to talk more about navigating change and how to take change and make it work for you. Alex Okoroji, Sandra Beck, Powered Up Talk Radio. We'll be back after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
To lose weight, we know that each day we need to burn more calories than we take in through eating, and exercise burns more calories. According to Discovery Health, a 150-pound person will burn about 60 calories while taking a 1-hour nap. 1 hour of sitting and watching television burns about the same. But if that 150-pound person takes a 1-hour brisk walk, then say goodbye to more than 250 calories. Cardio exercise like running, biking, swimming, and brisk walking are the best modes of exercise to burn the highest amount of calories and will get the endorphins flowing in your body. those feel-good neurotransmitters boost your mood naturally. So use exercise to burn calories, lose weight, and to feel good. I'm Annette Hammond. To hear other fitness and weight loss tips, visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
It's words you never heard.
Recently, while my family was skiing in Colorado, we were greeted by a red fox that darted out of the trees. This beautiful animal with his big bushy tail just stood in the snow and stared right at us. Maybe he smelled all the liverwort we had in our pockets. Liverwort is another word for junk and snack food. Typically, a red fox eats scrub and woodland, but this one appeared to have had his share of hamburgers and hot dogs from the Chalet Grill. Foxes are similar to dogs, except they are not pack animals. The female fox, or vixen, typically gives birth to a litter of 2 to 12 pups. When they are young, they all live together as a family, known as a leash of foxes. Once grown, the young foxes leave the burrow and go out to live on their own.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and this is Powered Up Talk Radio, and I'm here with Alex Okoroji, and we're talking now about how to make life changes work for you. Now Alex, when I went through my life change and my marriage fell apart, I went through a foreclosure, I went through a very ugly public divorce. My husband was having an affair with a local woman in town, and everybody knew her and him, and they were very public. It was like the biggest epic shameful failure that I had ever really encountered in my life. And I wrote about it, and there was one day when I figured out, you know what, I can't live in shame and silence and darkness anymore. Mm-hmm. So I wrote about it and I published it. And I didn't just publish it like, on my own little blog. I published it in some really big journals online, and it went everywhere. And, a couple people, there was some pushback. They're like, oh my God, aren't you, you're hurting your children by talking about this. You're really embarrassing yourself. There was like 3 or 4 snippies like that. But by and large, the majority of it was huge response. And I will never forget a guy in Iowa, 70 years old, wrote me. He had been married he got divorced at 68, and his wife had an affair with his best friend for 40 years, and he felt his whole life was a lie. His children with soccer games, that there they were in this secret relationship the whole time, and he thought they were all having fun. He felt so stupid, and his grown children said, Dad, you got to go to therapy, you got to talk about this. Well, he didn't know what to say, and he wrote me a letter saying, I read your blogs, I read your articles, I listened to your radio shows, and he goes, I want to thank you because you gave words to the feelings I couldn't express. And that was a big turning point for me, Alex, because I realized that, when we live in shame and darkness and we allow these changes to knock us down, and whether it's post-traumatic stress from an event, from a soldier facing, or a serviceman or woman facing, to a car accident, to a divorce, to the death of a child or a spouse, like if we keep this bottled up, it hurts everyone, not just us. It hurts everyone around us, and it hurts the world. And so when I opened up like my scab for everybody to see, and I was so ashamed, Alex, I was so nervous. I couldn't sleep the whole night before these articles launched, and I thought I was going to be sick because you can't recall it. Once you put it out there, you put it out there. But the response was overwhelming, and it resulted in my radio career, my book career, my speaking career, so many things, so many doors opened for that one door that slammed shut.
Sandra, it's just so weird how, we have very similar experiences, but it's true. But I also think that, the listeners need to understand that this is something that, this is real, and this is something that they can apply to if they're stuck in that situation and don't know what to do. And it really isn't about, sometimes we care so much about society, and society has these expectations, of how we're all supposed to be and behave and react. And there's this unspoken belief that, perfection exists, but the truth is perfection is a myth. And so we're all going to experience challenges, and nothing is always going to go the way that we expect to plan, but we're going to have to figure a way out. And, what you said that you did is what I did too. It's weird. I started journaling because, like I said, there was nobody I could tell. And so I started writing. I would just write, this thing about how I feel and just my thoughts about relationships and, my experience. And I put it out there on Facebook. That was the first thing I did. I put it on Facebook, and just the reaction was, really good. And just like you, there are a few people who are going to go like, you're an actress. You shouldn't be presenting yourself like this. You have a child, you should care about what happens to the future. And I'm like, but the truth is more people could relate with what I was going through. And that helped me to heal because I was a real human being. I now realize that I wasn't alone. And there are people, I was being a voice for even the people who couldn't speak, the people who were afraid to share their own pain and put themselves out there because they're worried about judgment. The fact that I was able to do that for them and not feel embarrassed, by the fact that I was putting all my whatever out there, gave them the strength to be able to deal with it. I mean, if the actors are going to do that, then, so it was more like I had empowered them, and I would get emails and replies and comments and things, and somehow, and people would say, how would anyone leave, a woman like you, and how would anyone do this and do that? And you're such a strong woman for raising a child. And those encouragements, those words were like balm. Yes, it didn't happen overnight, but those words every day, it almost felt to me like I now had a community, and I now have people. I now realized that I wasn't alone. Well, at least I wasn't the only one going through what I, had gone through. And so sometimes we have to not be afraid to bare ourselves, to reveal ourselves, to put ourselves out there. I say to people that sometimes when we lie, right, and when we cover up and we lie and we do those things, we do that because we're afraid. We're afraid to lose, something or someone. But when we tell the truth, we're really afraid to lose ourselves. And so you want to be at the point where, for me, I got tired of having to cover up and lie because I was losing myself and I no longer could recognize who I really was and the potentials that I had. But the moment I put myself out there, it was almost like I was getting closure, of some sort, and I needed to get into the next phase of my life. And that, like you said, that created a career for me because now people wanted my views, they wanted my opinion, and then, all of a sudden you realize you have all this amazing wisdom that came out from something that you had experienced.
Well, and it's one of those things where, right, you need people, like, here's the thing, it's like, you're probably like I was, where I would bust my tail just to be successful. Like a B wasn't good enough. I needed to get an A or an A+. And if I was doing something, I wanted it to be the best. So I was willing to work for it. I wasn't sitting around and expecting to be the best. I was willing to really push forward. So when this happened to me, it was the first kind of big epic fail that I had ever encountered. And so I really didn't know what to do with it because I hadn't really failed. I mean, I failed a couple classes, I failed a couple of relationships, but it wasn't like one of these big epic life failures. And when you have a lot of other things going for you and you don't have that toolkit or that experience in that, and you got to kind of learn it all at once. But the thing that happens is you realize how much you need other people. You realize how much we all need validation. I don't care if you're, Brad Pitt getting dumped. Everybody needs validation. It doesn't matter. The other things didn't matter. It didn't matter that I had 30 Marine competitions. It didn't matter that I had all these degrees and awards. It just didn't matter. I felt wholly and completely unlovable. And that's normal. Like, when I do a lot of shows for the military and when we talk about post-traumatic stress and people are like, oh, well, you come back from combat and you're different. And I'm always like, well, duh. You go through a divorce, you're different. You go to war, you're different. You go to, your kid's school and you get bullied. Guess what? That kid's going to be different. Life happens to us and we are different. Now, does it mean different bad? No.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be. It can. And you can choose that route and you can choose not to get support and help and go down that route. But at the end of the day, life happens to us, whether it's a divorce, it's a war, it's a lawsuit, it's an accident, a car accident or a fatality. You can have a friend die. And I've had Some of my friends died. Mommies died this summer for me. Kathy, I want to honor her, and Twig, I want to honor her. These women were in their early 40s. They were young and healthy. One had a blood thing, and the other one had cancer that was undetected and took her life within 3 months. And I'll tell you, I'm not the same that I was in. Kathy died in July, and Twig died recently. So I'm not the same person I was. And those were events that happened, but they didn't happen to me, Alex. But I'm different as a result of that knowledge. It's like I don't take my health so much for granted. I value my body more, even though there's extra pounds, at least it's alive. And I'm so grateful, when I look at my kids and go, when they're mean to me, I fired back. It's like, well, you know what, at least I'm here. And if I'm not here, we don't want to get in this habit of battling, because there might be a day sooner rather than later that I'm not here. It gives you perspective. So kind of recognizing that whatever we go through changes us, and that we kind of have to ride through the changes. Like my friend used to tell me, he was my divorce coach. He'd been divorced 3 times. He's like, I'm an expert. And he said, just breathe through the changes. He said, yes, you're going to feel different. Because I was married 10 years. So that was a long time for me. And I had kind of identified myself as a wife and mother. And all of a sudden I wasn't. And so I didn't know how to label myself. And I think we get a lot of comfort in our labels, whether it's actress or radio host or author or wife and mother. And now I'm just a mother. And so I think I had to breathe into that new life. And I think anyone going through it in the trenches right now, whether it's post-traumatic stress from whatever, you got to breathe through it.
You just said something that stuck out for me, and there, that just totally, flashed, beamed before me. And that was the fact that you said that we get stuck in our labels, and that's so true, And sometimes we even worry when we lose it, right? So you could be best-selling author right now, and a few years down the line or a few months down the line, you're no longer best-selling author. No one is even reading your books anymore, and you're worried about not being presented that way, because that has been your identity. Now, for those, what I've realized is that, yes, I did say at the beginning of the show that, when someone says actress or says this or says that, I feel like there are just so many different elements about me that I no longer even care anymore, which one of it that you can relate to, which one because I am Alex and I'm all of these different, complicated things. But you did say something, and for us to be able to effectively manage change and embrace, challenge and reinvention, is that we have to find, different ways not to get stuck on those labels, whether you're a Miss or a Mrs., right, or whatever it is, your career, your mom, or there are people who were parents and God forbid they lost their child. Maybe they had only one, and for a reason they're no longer that. Those things, and what happens to you when you go through those kind of traumatic moments in your life. So, we have to constantly, like you said, constantly find ways to just create that balance and just embrace whatever and enjoy. At least enjoy, even if it's hard, but see just the lessons, the positive lessons that will come out from those situations. So.
Well, yeah, and the new normal. On my military show, we talk a lot about a new normal. A family moves, a father or mother, goes to serve overseas and comes back. There's lots of adjustment that happens. So I guess if nothing else today, Alex and I would like to wish everyone listening today, if you're going through something, know that eventually it will resolve itself one way or the other, and you'll get to your new normal, and you will feel normal again. You'll be different, and you'll be, I think, better, and you'll be stronger, but you will get there. Alex and I are living proof. And if you're a single mom out there, Alex and I send you special wishes and special hugs, because we know how tough and lonely that job can be, despite all the support we give. We're giving some validation to you from Alex and I. This is Sandra Beck at Powered Up Talk Radio. Alex Okoroji. You can find her at ALEXOKROJI, AlexOkoroji.com. We'll be back again next week with more Powered Up Talk Radio.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and